This is the House of Parliament where men and women have sat for decades, making decisions that would affect all our lives. Do they really work in the interests of the people or themselves? They sit at the round tables, trying to decipher which way to turn. Is it left or is it right? Have the people benefited from those decisions? Our people have suffered for far too long. Change should not be a figment of the imagination, but reality. Every boy, every girl, every man, every woman are equally important. The market vendor joyfully sells her produce. The fish vendor skillfully uses his cutlass to cut the fish. Keep on working. Let your smile be your motivation. Build a community of brotherly and sisterly love. Don't give up on your dreams. Surround yourself with positive thinkers. Think big and keep on moving. Keep pushing the envelope. Yes, push that envelope until you have succeeded. You may have made many mistakes, but that is no reason to stop. Don't you dare give up. Get ready for that overflow. Get ready for that breakthrough. The overflow is coming. Showers of blessings. Stay cool. Stay calm. Stay collective. Ride the rough waves of life. Hold on to that rope tightly. Just keep working. Keep moving. Keep believing. Self-motivation. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Lies and Deceit. I am your host, Soraya Alexander, better known as So-So. My people, how are you tonight? It is going to be a very, very interesting show because many of you listen to our former Prime Minister, Honorable Alan Chastney, now the leader of the opposition. You heard him speak last night addressing the budget. Okay, all right, okay. Uncle Shas, yeah, I just got some info from my producer. Oh my, okay. Uncle Shas traveled, and I know he would never let his So-So down. So, because I can do my show, you could be in Russia, you could be in Mars, I can do my show with you. So Uncle Shas, sent a note to me to tell me that he would have been, he would be with me 9 o'clock because he has to settle in the hotel and everything. So we set up everything for him, but Uncle Shas is there already. Hey! So that makes my job easier. Now, let me say hello to all my people in TV land, my senior citizens. So love you. Good evening, and how are you tonight, my senior citizens? Thanks for always joining. So y'all are so sweet, always sending me messages and encouraging me, praying for me. Yes, pray for me. They after me. Pray for me. I need all the prayers because, as I said to you, I can't do this on my own. And I just want to say a special good night to all of you and hope you are enjoying the show. All my senior citizens, both here and in the diaspora, I want to say a special good night. And to all my lovely people, the young ones who also watch me on TV, on GVD TV, Flow 115, I want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much. And also to my YouTubers, boy, y'all love YouTube, 100 and something on YouTube. Y'all love the YouTube. Now, as I said before, please go and like my YouTube channel. Bring me up to 1,000 people so I can, start doing more stuff in there. So help So-So get to 1,000. I know y'all love So-So. And my YouTubers, Twin Peters, toujours là. Gloriana, how are you, darling? Venice, I hope I said that right. Oswald, And Troy, my baby boy. Hi, Troy. How you doing? I tell you, Troy is a faithful fan. Yes, Auntie Soso, she really, really loves Troy. And to all my lovely people, Sharon, good night. Angelina, good night. Priscilla, Malcolm, Shane, how you doing? Shane. One thing, Shane not playing with his Soso, huh? The Shima, I had nothing to say to the Shima. Shane took him on. Good. Thanks, Shane. Thanks for having Soso back. Hi, Mel. How are you, Melly, darling? Tenny, Geraldine, Rose, Greta, Harold, Sabina, Clemens. He say he rich. My neighbor say he rich. Clemens, Claudia, how are you, darling? Hi, Clara. Priscilla, Hyacinth, Elta. And where is Anisha? Where is Miriam? Mabel, I know, you're grieving, but I wish you all the best. Now, many people have started. Hi, Julia. Hi, Julia. Hi, Julia. Let me say hi to Hermine. Hermine, how are you? Glad you're better. My little friend. Oh. Hi, Lucy. Hi, Marva. Hi, Alter. Priscilla, now my friends, some of you have been buying coffee from yesterday. Thank you for all the coffees, and please ensure that you go and support and buy the coffee. Now, let me tell you all something. I'm gonna play the tape for y'all showing, but before I do that, since he's here already, let us wish our former Prime Minister, now the leader of the opposition, Honorable Alan Shastney, and his wife, Raquel Shastney, a happy 20th wedding anniversary. You guys have done well. Some people can't even stay a day married, 2 days, 2 years married. People don't understand in a marriage is communication. Love ain't got nothing to do with it. Yeah, you love somebody, yeah, but you seeing this person in your eyes every day. What really keeps the marriage is communication and understanding, and God should be the center of everything. And a lot of people profess to be Christians, they married and thing, and then it go broadsides. But we want to say, we have the photo up. We want to say happy anniversary to our former Prime Minister, Honorable Alan Shastney, and his wife, Mrs. Raquel Shastney. It is really good, and I really admire, I think Alan Shastney brought stability to St. Lucia in terms of the family, that we had a head of government who is also a family man. You never heard our former Prime Minister with this woman, that woman, bacchanal here. We never heard anything like that. So I am wishing you God's richest blessing, that you and your wife continue in this vein. Now, my people, I am going to bring Uncle Shas on after I play you the hypocritical video of Philip J. Pierre. And honestly, Uncle Shas's speech gave many of us hope. But to have Philip J. Pierre as our Prime Minister, it really hurts. It really hurts, because let me tell you why. The spirit of vindictiveness, hatred, racism, it's beyond me. So just have a look at this video, my people.
The leader of government business wrote a letter to the leader of the opposition offering him time to speak. The leader of the opposition responded saying when he wants to speak, based on a ratio that he worked out for himself. The leader of government business stood up again, and he wrote him. And he wrote him again, and he said, please change your mind. Let us be mature in this exercise. Change your mind and speak in the allotted time. I will even give you the same amount of time as the Prime Minister, even if you do not respond as is the normal process. He refused again. The leader of government business stood up in his honorable house and begged the leader of the opposition to speak. Literally begged him. Tell him, come on, I will still give you the same amount of time, even if you've lost it because you did not reply right away. He refused to speak, Mr. Speaker. Yes, and again told him, it's 7 o'clock in the evening. You speak. You speak. It's prime time. His response was, what's prime time?
Flashback.
Madam Speaker, I am here with the same authority as him. So you can't tell me when to speak. Nobody, I am here with the same authority as all of them.
Honourable members.
Parliamentarian.
Okay.
The people sent me here to speak on the business of the country.
And you have
they can't tell me
spoken.
when to speak.
And you have spoken, and you are saying
They can't tell
that
me to
it
speak.
is not constitutional,
They are
and
arrogant,
I am
Madam
saying
Speaker.
that
They can't tell me
I
to speak. They are
have
arrogant
the authority
and
to do.
disrespectful to the people of this country.
Not
They can't do
one
that.
member
I
found
stand
it
up against them.
convenient.
You can't do me anything. I've told you that. No.
We expose lies and deceit. Expect us.
We expose lies and deceit. Expect us. So tonight, help me bring in our leader of the opposition, Honorable Alan Shasney, to the program. Welcome, Honorable Alan Shasney, to Lies and Deceit.
Great to be here with you this evening, and I'm so happy that I'm able to make it.
Yes. I know that you have been busy, and I'm very thankful. You know, I know you're the leader of the opposition, but people look at this role as, okay, this role is nothing. But people don't understand that you are still part of the government. The government is made up of every parliamentarian. The 17 of you make up the Parliament of St. Lucia, the government of St. Lucia. And what also people fail to realize that the leader of the opposition has same benefits, right? Same perks, right? As the Prime Minister of St. Lucia. When there are regional meetings, you get invited, you are still looked upon. Now, Uncle Charles, happy anniversary to you and your wife. We shout you out, and I'm so happy, you know. I know you travel, you must be a little tired. So just tell me how you're feeling. It's your anniversary. Just speak to us.
Well, hopefully my wife is still talking to me because I'm traveling on our anniversary.
Yes.
And I told her I'm going to have to take a rain check, and when our kids come back, that we will celebrate it as a family. But look, it's a monumental achievement.
Yes.
I love her more today than I loved her when I first married her. And she's been an amazing, amazing wife. She has been my rock of Gibraltar. And I'm very blessed to have her in my life and her family in my life. And she's given me probably the two greatest gifts with my two children. I'm just very blessed.
You are blessed. You are blessed. Now we're going to get right down to business, Uncle Charles. Now, I listened to your speech last night. And what really, really caught my attention, and I think Philip J. Pierre, in all honesty, should have taken a page from you. Because when you entered into the political arena, you know, vying to be the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, it was new to you. And I think you may have served one term under Sir John as the Minister for Tourism. But what really touched me, your speech, and I am here to how will I say it, quiet the noise. You said, you were honest, and this is what I said to many of my friends. And anyway, somebody asked me to give your message. He told me not to mention his name. I will not do that. He is a very strong St. Lucia Labour Party supporter. He has always voted for St. Lucia Labour Party, but he has asked me personally to say to you, he is now supporting you because of your humbleness. He never realized that you were so humble. He listened to all the noise and the bacchanal, but he has been listening to my programs from November, right? and continue listening to it. He's on the live listening to you. And, he said, because of your humbleness, he is now giving you all his support, and that is commendable. Now, Uncle Shas.
I very much appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Now, Uncle Shas, had Philip J. Pierce said to the people of St. Lucia, I am coming into office, but I need time. I cannot give you the world. I cannot give you the 1,500. I cannot give you the 4,000 I promise in tax refunds, the 5,000, and all the other things, the 150. What struck me in your speech, and I just need you to walk St. Lucians through this for me, because I don't think St. Lucians are listening. You said in your speech, everything else was good, but what really captivated me, you said in your speech, Honorable Alan Shasti, that in 2016, and I remember that, so you're not telling any lie, in 2016, when you came into office as the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, you asked the people of St. Lucia to give you 3 years grace to work. In your speech, you said that you found our country, our economy in a comatose state, and you were going to do everything within your power to revive our country. So keep this here. And also, you worked so hard that in 2019, there was a watershed moment. It was a watershed year because you were honest, and as my friend said, humble enough to say to the people of St. Lucia that I am not able to work magic. I need 3 years. I really want to go back to that time and for you to speak to the people of St. Lucia, because apparently our people like a quick fix. And this is what the St. Lucia Labour Party promised them, a quick fix, and nothing is fixing now. So Uncle Shas, the floor is yours. You can flow with this.
Thank you very much, Soraya. First of all, I don't know which way to start with. Whether I start with Philip Pierre or I start with myself.
Start with whichever one, it's fine.
Okay, so maybe I'll start with myself. So before getting into politics, I had the benefit of being involved in several startups. I would like to think that when I took over the St. Lucia Tourist Board in 1991, that was a startup, because tourism really was in an infancy in St. Lucia. Our U.S. numbers were dismal. And I would say that the Tourist Board was just really going through motions. I then had the benefit of going to Windjammer Landing, which was a startup. I then went to work for ESIPS, Eastern Caribbean Investment Service, which was a startup in Washington, D.C. I had the benefit of going to work for Chris Blackwell from Island Records, who started up a brand new brand called Island Outpost. I then went to Air Jamaica, which was an established company, but had gone through a bankruptcy and literally was starting from the beginning with the involvement of Mr. Butch Stewart. I came back home and got involved in Coco Palm, which was a startup. So I've had that experience. I started the St. Lucia Jazz Festival. I started the Air Jamaica Jazz and Blues Festival. I mentioned those because they became pretty big entities. And there was something common in all of them. You have to have a long-term plan and strategy as to where you want to go. You have to establish very clear benchmarks every single year that you want to be able to achieve. But the reality, there is no substitute for time. Time is indispensable. And that's where you have to develop patience, you have to have faith in the Lord, and you have to just give certain things time. So the country that I inherited, or that we inherited in 2016, even though I was not in government, I may not have known all the details, but generally I understood the problem that we had. And the problem that St. Lucia had is we didn't have a clear vision as to where we were going to go. The government needed to be modernized. We were not taking advantage of technology. We were sadly not employing enough people, but could not employ any more people given the amount of income the state was earning. And we had run literally 15 years of a deficit. So what's a deficit? Deficit means that we were spending more money every year than we actually were earning. And so it means that we were borrowing money to pay for the deficit. So to put that in layman's terms, if you have a household and you have your wife who's working and you have maybe one of your children who's working, and your mortgage and your utility bills, etc., are higher than what your collective incomes are, and you go to the bank and borrow money, that can only be a temporary fix. That cannot be a long-term fix, because the money you're borrowing is just to make up for the shortfall, but it's not being invested in anything that's going to generate any additional income.
Exactly.
So in reality, is that either you have to find another investment to generate additional income, or more people in the household have to be employed, but you have to find additional sources of revenue. And that's what the reality was. And so the problem that St. Lucia was facing is because of successive years of deficits, no money was being invested in the productive capacity of the country. Roads were not being fixed, water was a problem, electricity was a problem, airport was a problem, your education system was a problem, your healthcare system was a problem, your security system was a problem, the issue of crime, we weren't even coming close to resolving the crime. So that's why I made the very famous statement that what Kenny Anthony couldn't do, that I would. And if you listened very carefully to what the former Prime Minister said on crime in the House at this last budget debate, he's made full circle. He's now admitted that cars and buildings are not going to resolve the problem of crime. You have to get to the core of the crime problem. The core of the crime problem, and we'll talk about it more later, is that young people are more attracted to a gang life than they are about a St. Lucia life. And we as a society are to blame, because we're not creating a compelling enough reason for young people to commit themselves to the development and to patriotism in our country. For a young man growing up in a household in which his mother has never worked, his grandmother has never worked, his great-grandmother has never worked, and he's only known suffering in his life, very difficult to convince him that getting a job, getting up at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning to commute to a hotel or to a construction site, to earn $1,500 maybe, or $2,000 a month, very, very difficult to convince them to do that when there is probably a more lucrative life, maybe not as long as a life, but a more lucrative life while he's alive otherwise. So the society was falling apart all over the place.
Yeah.
So these structural problems could not be resolved overnight. And it takes time. So even when we sat down with the government ministries, my first conversation with the government ministries was to say this: if you know what you know today, and you were going to start your ministry over today, and I told you that the amount of money that you would have to run your ministry would be the same amount of money that you currently have, how would you structure that ministry? You know, so in some cases you would apply more technology, you would change your recruiting processes, you would try to find more productive ways. So if you take education as an example, you cannot hire any more teachers. That's the reality. Education is the highest expenditure item that we have in our budget. And almost 90 or 85% of the expenses in the Ministry of Education are salaries. So the fact is, we're not getting enough productivity out of the current structure. So we said, let's go to these ebooks. So the former government wanted to have laptops. You're giving a child a laptop, it had no software in it, it just had the ability of going online. So it wasn't really a learning tool. It was a distraction, in my humble opinion. What we wanted to do is to find an ebook that actually had a software system that was integrated into the school system. So the ebooks that we gave out had the capacity of all of your books being downloaded into your ebook. So for a young girl in any form, this idea of carrying this heavy bag is over. As a parent, paying $1,100 or $1,200 a year for books, the ebook license fee was $350 a year. And anytime there was a new edition, that new edition automatically got downloaded. Mm-hmm. The ebook also had links. So when you went to the chapters in your books, there would be the little blue links, just like you go online, mm-hmm. and it would link to all the source material. Mm-hmm. We were also now putting a parallel program in place. And this is very important. Why don't we identify the best Form 2 math teacher, the best Form 2 science teacher, the best Form 2 English teacher, the best Form 2 IT teacher, and do that throughout all the forms in St. Lucia, and then film them lecturing. So that means that those lectures are online and available to all the students 24/7. So I was a very, I'm sure I suffered techie. From AD. Well, no, my concentration was not the greatest.
ADHD, yeah.
So the reality is that I could go home and I could replay the lecture as many times as I want to, as many times as it took for me to understand it. And the reality is now you've leveled the playing field. So this need to be able to go to this particular school because you think the teachers are better in that school, everybody would have access now to the best teachers. So the fact is that the whole education system starts being turned upside down, and the productivity and the efficiency of our education system is improved. Because remember, we said we have to have a globally competitive education system.
That's right.
The other thing is that we call it TVET. TVET is a simpler way, but the reality is 2/3 of Germans do not have a university degree. What they have is training in skills. And the salaries that they're going to get are as good as a doctor, a lawyer, or as anybody else, because it's a huge manufacturing sector. So the fact is that we needed to amend our education system so that young people would see that they could have a career from early and start giving them the technical training to become the best IT security person, programmer, to become a great plumber, to become a great electrician. And so it's not about just the ability to learn those skill sets, but it's also life skills as well. I can go on and explain to you that Sir Arthur Lewis, when we did the analysis there, the government is putting in $15 million a year. Students are paying $1,500. So that means that with the government's contribution and the students' contribution, the tuition fee is $9,000 a year. Not $1,500, okay? When they did the analysis, they said that we would have to double our contribution to $30 million. And we would have to raise the school fees to $6,000 in order to break even. Okay? So it means the $9,000 was only covering the cost of the payroll of the teachers' salaries. It wasn't covering the cost for anything else. There was 250 teachers. We were doing 42 different curriculums. So what I said was okay, at the end of the day, the government has 250 teachers. That's really what we have as our resource. So why don't we narrow down the number of curriculum that we have a basic program which is at $1,500, increase the price for the skill sets that can pay more. If you train a nurse, nurses is a globally competitive sector. Anybody you train here can get a job internationally.
That's right.
And we should be encouraging more young women to get involved, because they're going to send remittances back home.
Yes.
But train enough to export, as well as training enough to get the experience here in St. Lucia.
Yes.
Plumbers, electricians, auto mechanics, all of these people are going to get jobs which are good paying jobs, so therefore the cost of the tuition can be higher. And if we can then marry it with the private sector so the private sector can sponsor some of those things, would be fantastic. And so what I said, okay, we're going to be going through this government modernization. Why don't we create a public sector training institution and use 125 of those teachers to identify what are the jobs of the future for the public sector, allow the public sector for free to get training, and then as now the transition of the public sector starts taking place, that people could apply themselves in whatever field they want to go into, because it's going to be much more technology driven than it was ever before, because IT is going to change the quality and the effectiveness of government services. So I want to say, so that it's okay to have these conversations, but the detail of implementation doesn't happen overnight. And there's always going to be resistance to change. And you cannot just go in. So when people say, oh, you're an autocrat, if I was an autocrat, I would have pushed all these things through in the first year. But it would not have worked, because you'd have had people trying to undermine those ideas from the onset. So that's why I'm saying it takes 3 years. It takes 3 years for dialogue. It takes another year in order for people to start learning, and then it starts becoming perfected. And it's by the third year that you start seeing the efficiencies coming through, and then all of a sudden the resistance to change starts diminishing, and new ideas start coming in because people's minds have been opened up to a new process, and they see people's reaction, and how encouraged people are. And they now start becoming excited about the job that they're currently doing. So that's why by 2019, even though we had not been successful in everything we had done, all of a sudden the processes were changing, the capacity of the government was changing, people were feeling a lot more confident about how things were going. Tourism reached a record number. Manufacturing was doing well. We had established the call center business. So after all the resistance, you had several hotels that were ready to break ground. Now, I want you to think for a moment. In 2019, we brought the unemployment rate down to 16% from 25%. We had grown the economy every single year. We had record revenue numbers. Imagine if we didn't have COVID and tourism stayed at 450,000 or even made up to 500,000 arrivals. And then now all of these road projects and airport projects and St. Jude's and everything else would have happened. Imagine where our economy would have been and how much different people would have been thinking. Unfortunately, COVID came. I mean, everybody admits it has nothing to do with us. It was a global phenomenon, but you had to sit back and now to deal with it. So this is the point I was making last night. The Labour Party cannot even begin to lay claim for any of the successes, because they did everything to fight all of the initiatives that my government started. When we decided to open up the borders, they said every time that somebody died, they said I had blood on my hands, that you can't open up the borders. When we put in different protocols, they said they were in conflict, even though we said that we were trying to coexist and we were trying to create jobs for people. When we were doing the roads, they said you cannot eat a road. So now we've seen that, in fact, you can eat roads because the construction grew by 20%. The revenue that created was the duties went up in revenue, personal income taxes went up, and corporate income taxes went up. So what does that mean? It means that the construction projects, the money was being distributed right throughout the economy. Because tourism only made it back to stayover arrivals 50%, cruise ship arrivals 10%, collectively 27%. 27% of where we were in 2019. Yet, unemployment, which was at 16%, only went to 21%. And that's with all of your hotels, your hospitality sector being affected. So construction did what it was supposed to do, which was to substitute for the loss of income. So I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself, but the reality is it took 3 years to start restructuring the country. So solid waste, good example. We came into a situation in which Dayglow right now, as we speak, only has, I think, another 1.5 years or 2 years left of its life. The View Fort one had already reached the end of its life. And there were several proposals as to where to put the landfill sites. The reality is landfill is not a medium-term or long-term solution to sanitation in our country. The cost of transportation, so if you're taking garbage from Soufriere and bringing it to View Fort, if you're taking garbage from Gros Islet all the way to Dayglow, it's very, very costly. So a new technology that was introduced were these incinerators. And they're micro incinerators, so they do 4 tons a day. So the goal was to create about 17 to 20 small plants right around the island. They only take 20,000 square feet. So you concrete 20,000 square feet. You are now collecting garbage every day. So instead of collecting garbage twice a week, now you're going to be collecting garbage every 3 times a week.
Which is fantastic.
And then you're going to have smaller garbage trucks because the collection area becomes a much smaller area. So the Soufriere garbage stays in Soufriere, Choiseul and Labrie may be sharing, the 2 Micous would share, the 2 Denneries would share, etc.
Right.
These are the innovative things, and the fact is that you come up with the idea, you have to do your research, everybody has to go and do all their assessments, you're going to not always get buy-in right away, and everybody always has a negative thing to bring up to, because sometimes we're the greatest pessimists. And so again, it takes time to be able to bring these things to fruition. And so whether it was education, whether it's healthcare, whether it is the sporting facilities, all of these areas, there was detailed discussions in terms of developing a longer term plan to solve the problem. And all the while was with one concept in mind. Don't increase the amount of money that you're spending, but change the processes to allow you to have a greater efficiency in what you were spending. So this is what we were doing. And what was very rewarding was that when COVID came and we reviewed our midterm strategy, we found out that we were on the right track. In fact, COVID confirmed to us that we need to be moving even faster than we had been moving before in this development plan.
Now, Uncle Charles, let me, I listened to you attentively, and I try to bring out the points I believe that many St. Lucians would like to know. And you said something, and the audacity of our new Prime Minister, based on what you said last night, you took $76 million and you use it to stimulate our economy during COVID. However, based on what the then opposition was saying that you should have done, you should have taken $76 million and just give it to people, put it in their pans, put it in their pots, put it in their plates, just give it to them. But you, in your wisdom and your technocrats around you, decided to stimulate the economy, and you did that through construction. So to me, on the part of this new administration, it is very careless to think that you can just take $76 million and just give it away. However, they should now get that $76 million and give it to the people of St. Lucia, because they promised the people of St. Lucia the stars and the moon and the universe. So that money, I think you took about $77 million to stimulate the economy. They right now should take that same money, which they are saying to you that you should have used, to just give to people. Why aren't they doing it? Why aren't they just pouring out money into people's skirts and pants?
So this is a really great opportunity maybe to explain again what happened. So when COVID came, and because tourism got shut down, and the entire country was shut down for 3 months. Remember, from April of 2020 until June of 2020, we had a sum total of 0 tourists.
Right.
And all the tourist workers went home. Many businesses were shut. And it was a really horrible time. Government's revenue went to $45 million. It dropped from $100 million. So the money that we got from the IMF, the World Bank, and the CDB, which amounted to $300 million was simply for budgetary support. It was to pay salaries and to keep government operating, because I was not allowed to use that money to pay down on debt or to pay for debt. So it was the tax revenue that we were earning that we were using for that. So let's go through the numbers. $43 million a month for salaries. $30 million a month to operate government. Keep the lights on, transportation, consultancies, rent, all those things to keep government running. And then we had another $30 million, sorry, $30 million a month, $15 million a month, sorry, $30 million a month in debt financing. And then because of COVID, Victoria Hospital, keeping all of the hotels open for the quarantine centers, because remember we were solutions and we're coming home, we were putting them up for 2 weeks, right? So they didn't have to stay in their homes to infect their parents. Everybody forgets that, right? All those expenses came to about $15 million a month more. So the money that we got really did not go into any form of economic stimulation. It simply just kept government basic. But remember, we had been planning for 3 years and we had shovel-ready projects. So the CDB, along with the British, had approved the monies, grant money for the West Coast Road, and the money from the Japanese for the JICA Bridge. The loan for the HIA airport had already been approved. The loans for the roads with the Taiwanese was already approved. The loans from the Taiwanese for the St. Jude's Hospital was already approved. Now, what Philip here and them were saying is that we should have taken those loans, repurposed them, okay, to do the expenditure that he did. So now I want to say this very clearly to all solutions. The point I was making last night is that government's revenue is back to where it was in 2019. So there's no excuse. So this idea when he came in and he said, oh, there's no money here, and we're suffering, and the government left a bank, that's all a categorical lie. That's just acting in theatrics. The second part is that the government amended the economic fund. So the economic fund, which was the money for CIP, was intended to be a sovereign fund. So being a sovereign fund, we would not use the money for recurrent expenditure. We would only use the money to pay down on debt or for capital investments or to keep liquidity for the government. So if we have an external exogenous shock, that we have some cash that we can draw down to, so we don't have to borrow. We don't have to borrow money. So you saw that work very well in Trinidad with their sovereign fund because of oil. Jamaica, because of 15 years of the IMF program, they were forced to have that reserve of monies. So they went and they amended the legislation of the economic fund to allow any project approved by cabinet. So in essence, they made it from a sovereign fund to a slush fund.
Yes.
He said now that fund earned $100 million. So in addition to government's revenue being back to where it was before, as well as now the $100 million, he has the opportunity of putting together an expenditure package of $76 million. He just finished his budget. That wasn't on his mind. That was just all a lie.
Lies and deceit.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing was it's just farcical. And the sad reality is that so many people fell for this.
Yes.
You know, and I think and that's why I said in my speech that they took advantage of people's vulnerabilities. They took advantage of people's fear, and told them that they had to be able to get all this money. So even now when we talk about the inflationary problems we're having in this country, for him to raise his hands and to say he didn't create the problem, admittedly he didn't. Nobody did. But that's what the reality is. So the question is, as a small island developing state, knowing how our economy is structured. So what do I mean by that? A lot of things like bus fares and price of flour and sugar, a whole bunch of other products are at fixed prices.
Right.
So if it's at a fixed price, but the input cost for that product goes up. So if the gas prices go up for the bus drivers, if the amount of money they're paying for parts and tires goes up, how can they continue to provide the bus fare at the same level?
Exactly.
So it means that until you've restructured your economy, you have to be mindful of that. So we think that the fuel prices is only for a limited period of time, maybe a year, until the war gets settled, till supply chain withdrawals are issued. Why go through this pain in St. Lucia? Why not subsidize the price of fuel, give people an electricity amount? So you talked about giving people $1,500 instead of $500. Okay, you can say, well, you know what? I meant 500.
500
for 3 months to get to the 50. Okay,
Yes.
imagine if households got $500 a month right now for the next couple of months to help soften the blow of the electricity fees, the increase in food price products, etc. But he's not even offered that.
He's offering
basically
nothing.
saying, I can't. He's offering nothing. Now, there's a concept, and so I'm going to rely on you because I think that you've shown that you're a much better communicator than I am. Okay? So the concept here is that government is planning for a windfall of import duty taxes.
Oh, yes. That's what they're planning.
Right.
We know that.
And the reason is because they're expecting the CIF, the cost insurance and freight,
to be up.
to go up. And that means that if you take a 10% tax, it's 10% on a bigger number. And so therefore there would be a windfall.
But
there's no volume change. There's no productivity change.
Thank you.
So it is better for government to say, okay, I'm going to lower the tax rate to maybe 6%. I will collect the same amount of revenue I was collecting before, and it's going to soften the blow. The prices may still go up, but they're just not going to go up by as much. And that people see that you're trying to do something, and that you're allowing households to survive, you're allowing businesses to survive. But this government wants to have its cake and to eat it at the same time.
Now the thing is, let me just butt in here. The thing he has been saying, and this is very painful, he has been coming to the people of St. Lucia to say that he's making nothing, no revenue. He's actually making minus 80 cents or minus 320 on every liter of fuel. So he is saying that he has to increase fuel by $2. Well, in the first instance, $1 and then $1. But what he is failing to tell the people of St. Lucia, that if he as a prime minister reduce the tax, the import taxes on the people of St. Lucia, we will have some more breathing room. He will not lose anything. He would still be making the same revenue, because what you have to do, you just have to create an equation so that you remain at the same level of revenue you were getting before the fuel increase, and give the people of St. Lucia some relief. He doesn't want to do that, and I'm appalled that St. Lucians are accepting that from this prime minister.
So let me show you how this works. So remember, we've spoken about the $1.50 gas tax that goes into a lockbox.
Right. That he doesn't know where it is. He said he came into office, he doesn't know where the 150 is.
So let me tell you where the 150 is. The 150 is regardless of what the CIF price is, the price of gas has to be $1.50 higher. So you must collect the $1.50.
Okay.
Because the $1.50 is what the Ministry of Finance is using to pay the loans that we have.
Okay, so hold on. I am just so happy you have said that. St. Lucians, listen to what the former Prime Minister, Honorable Alan Shastney, said. The 150 placed on the fuel, it is always there. Philip JPS said, yes, see, it must be under the bed. It is always there to ensure that they can service their loans. Listen carefully.
So the minister, right.
Go ahead.
The Ministry of Finance knows that. So the Ministry of Finance was able to approve the loan because they know where the $1.50 is going to come from. Now, the choice that government has here is to say, okay, we're going to subsidize the fuel price. Okay, so we're going to pay the $1.50 for the loans, right? And allow the price of fuel to go down. So if I was Prime Minister, I would come out to St. Lucians right now and say, look, the price of oil is artificially high at $100 and something. It's fluctuating all over the place because the war in Ukraine changes, the sanctions against Russia are changing, and you have a situation in China that could, all of a sudden they reopen and there's a huge demand. So it's going to fluctuate until the supply chain is resolved.
That's right.
So what the government is going to do is the government is going to subsidize the price of fuel to keep the price at $13.95. But with the understanding that when the price comes back down, we're going to keep the price at $13.95 for a longer period of time in order to recover the money to pay government back for the subsidy that it's doing. Okay?
Brilliant,
But
brilliant. This is so brilliant. This is very brilliant, I must tell you.
But you have to do that. You see, because St. Lucia has two things working against it. One, you are an export-led sector.
Yes.
So let's take the hotels right now, they're in the export business. Mm-hmm. Price of electricity is going up. The price of freight to bring products in has gone up.
It's going
the
up.
CIF price is going up, so the duties they're paying on all of their regular supplies is going up. Meanwhile, airlift in St. Lucia is down. And so it means you have to discount heavily to get the business. So you have less revenue coming in, less demand coming in. Your staff now are looking at you and saying, hey, do I get a pay increase? Because my bus fares are going up, the cost of living is going up, and I'm suffering. And meanwhile, many tourism workers have been taking a discounted salary because the hotels have not been running at full occupancies for the last 2 years. All the businesses are still suffering, right? So to go in now and put this added stress on into the system makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
You're going to destroy households.
Yes.
You're going to destroy the businesses in your country. It is better for government to absorb these losses on their balance sheet, because government can work with a negative balance. All governments work with negative balances. Right?
Yes. But so households can't work with negative balances.
And nor can small businesses. When it gets to the point where you can't pay your bills, guess what you do? You send the people home and you close down the business. Mm-hmm. And we're all familiar with that because that's exactly what happened to Solutions when they increased the VAT rate to 15%. This is no different. Okay, so the cost of fuel, the cost of duties, the increase in CIF prices, all of these things are acting exactly like what happened when the government put the 15% VAT tax on top of everybody. Okay, it destroyed the economy.
Now let me just say this to you. The $1.50, and it is the bold-faced untruth that our Prime Minister is saying he doesn't know where the lockbox is, he doesn't know the $1.50. So are you saying to me that the technocrats do not know where the Ministry of Finance doesn't know where the $1.50 is in order to explain to our Prime Minister?
Well, the same way they didn't let Chico speak, I'm sure they're not letting the other technocrats speak. So So this is not a government that believes in democracy and was in transparency, etc. They don't want anybody to contradict them. And I can imagine that most of the civil servants are terrified of saying anything contradictory to what they're saying. But look, this is no different than the airport tax. Okay? So in the particular case of the airport, Cabinet approved the application of a $35 tax that goes directly to SLASPA, and then SLASPA assigns it to a bank in which the banks draw that money down. Okay? The same thing works with the gas tax. Cabinet approved the $1.50. I set out to the public the $1.50 was to generate and be a direct revenue to support the capital investment programs for roads.
Right.
So here's the Taiwanese loans. Now, the additional direct finance awards that we issued, where that money came from is the loan that we got from the Taiwanese has a 5-year moratorium. So it means we're collecting the full $1.50, which generates around $30 million a year in tax revenue. So if we don't have to pay the principal back for the 5 years, 30 times 5 is $150 million. Right? And so we issued out $150 million of direct finance awards. The other lie that, I have to tell you, I was so embarrassed for Stevenson King in the comments he was making. I was so hoping to have been able to speak after him. So he's trying to convince us that somehow the contract to Fresh Start, which is the same contract that was given to Nationwide, the same contract that was given to Renault, that the only place that they had corruption was on the Fresh Start contract. He then was trying to suggest that Fresh Start was reporting to an engineer that the engineer was not accountable to the chief engineer in the Ministry of Infrastructure. That's correct. But he was accountable to the permanent secretary, who was the chief accounting officer. The same permanent secretary that had been the deputy permanent secretary for like 10 years became the permanent secretary. And on Steve's recommendation, we made him a grade 21 because he was such a fantastic individual. So he is the person that was overseeing the job. Now, the Ministry of Infrastructure staff that oversee all of the projects oversaw the Rodney Bay Road. So that's a categorical lie. But let me explain, hopefully, to your viewers tonight, the catastrophe that has been created. And a catastrophe because of personal vendettas, revenge, and victimization. Fresh Start wanted to do the Rodney Bay Road because it was a very visible road. So the proposal that they made was a very, very economical and very good cost, good value. So they did a contract, what we call a fixed cost contract. I don't know if you're familiar with that term. So basically it means that you are going to take the risk on inflation and any oversights that were done.
You don't pass it to the government. Yes.
Right. You're going to guarantee to give me all of these things for $15 million.
Right.
And those the things that you guarantee to give was a 2-lane road, right? 4 lanes, a pedestrian overpass, sidewalks on both sides, and 2 roundabouts with all the new drains. When the government came in, the new government came in, but the old minister stayed there. If they really wanted to put Fresh Start under pressure, what they should have done is tell Fresh Start, finish the road.
That's right.
Because he was going to lose a lot of money on that
because
road.
Inflation had gone up and he would have to deal with the inflation.
Correct.
Because he has a fixed price he gave to the government. And this is what the people of St. Lucia are not understanding. They're being fooled. Fresh Start was more a loss than the government.
Correct. So they allowed the period to go by in order for the contract to come to an end. They jumping up in joy because they've gotten rid of Fresh Start. But now they're not paying Fresh Start the $15 million on the fixed price. They have to go in and quantify how much work that was done. And I assure you, Soraya, the value is going to be almost or greater than the $15 million. Now, here's the problem. After you go and pay Fresh Start the $15 million, which you're going to be obligated to do,
yes,
you now have to go and find a new contractor to finish the road.
This is madness.
And meanwhile, 9 months has gone by. Everybody is being inconvenienced. There's no sense of urgency to get this thing done, right? I mean, it's pathetic that this government really speaks about caring about people, or that they're transparent and that they're professional and they're efficient. Quite the contrary.
Exactly.
Madness.
It is madness. And I can clarify what you're saying there, that Fresh Start, when they did the contract with government, the price was locked in. I did my research and I know the price was locked in. So if inflation went up, it is them to foot that bill and not the government. So when they were saying that all the awards were given to Fresh Start and it's a bubble, this, it was not so. Right now, the people of St. Lucia are going to pay millions to Fresh Start and millions to finish the roundabouts.
Correct. And nobody can compensate everybody for the inconveniences every single day of what that road is right now. And so you can see what it's going to look like, but you can't taste it, right?
Exactly.
It's pathetic. And the same thing on the shock housing. It was costing government nothing. Government put the land in. Fresh Start was going to develop the land, sell the lots at $25 a square foot. 80% of the sales, the initial sales, would go to Fresh Start
To recover
until they
their
were
cost.
paid for
Exactly.
their cost. And then afterwards, 100% of the revenue would go to government, right? But meanwhile, in this guava season, where you're trying to have construction grow to make up for the shortfall in tourism, that's the part that this government's not understanding. Why is the West Coast Road, the Millennium Highway, taking so long? We've been hearing about it starting. I mean, I was trying to get it started before the elections.
Yes.
And I can tell you, we were on the phone weekly with CDB and with the DFID fund to get this thing going. But I just don't get the sense that there's any sense of urgency, that the government really genuinely understands how important it is to have construction going to keep the economy going.
They don't. Now, I want to segue a bit because many of us, St. Solutions, even those on the opposite, are saying that we do not understand. This is why my friend had to say, you're so humble, that we do not understand how you can be so composed. When I watched what happened in the House of Parliament, I wanted to pass through my iPad and for me to go and deal with Philip JPA. I could not believe the disrespect that was shown to you. Uncle Shaz, you must be one that is very connected with God. You must be one that is very humble, because it really takes a humble person and a spiritual person to take that form of bullying. Now, explain to, I know you have said it in your short video, but I also did a video and I saw the total disrespect to you, and I also saw what you played in your clip was absolutely correct. Explain to the people of St. Lucia, because you are on GVD TV, Flow 115, you are on YouTube, and you are on Facebook. Explain to the people what transpired in that house.
So first of all, I want to say to you, so I am a man of faith. I'm also a sportsman.
Yes.
And I understand the
Discipline.
field of competitiveness, right? But also, this is not about me.
Exactly.
You can call me whatever you want to, because my fixation, my ambition is about St. Lucia and solutions. So what you say about me and all this nonsense is irrelevant to me, as long as it's not true. Well,
Right.
it's not true, I'm not going to worry, okay?
Right.
The sad part is I lost election, in a large part because people believe the half-truth.
The lies.
And this is why I said that Richard Frederick deserves a PhD in psychology, because he played on our culture. So let me
Yes.
explain what I mean by that.
Yes.
So it's, you start a story, but don't finish it. We call it the power of the pause. So let me use the Rodney Bay Road. Michael, the roundabout is built on land owned by Michael Chastney.
Yes, by your dad.
And you stop there. You show a piece of paper, blah, blah, blah. Okay? People will go, that bastard Alan Chastney, helping his father. Okay? Nobody gets into the detail because we all think the worst. That's sadly how many people are cut in the whole world. We're all going to think the worst. Okay? Now, it was really left to my party to finish the half-truth, which was, yes, but it was only 400 square feet of land, and that my father gave it for free. Okay? But the reality is, even after saying that, there's still some people who heard the first story, or they created the first story, and they're going to believe it. And there's nothing you can do to change that. So my temperament in the house is because I am a man of faith. I have a great amount of trust in the Lord. I'm a sports person. I know that when you're on the field, your opponent's job is to try to do everything to throw you off your concentration, to take you out of your mojo, you know. So I don't let people do that to me. I'm not going to get emotional, and that's what I'm saying to you. So it's easy for me because I don't take these things personally, what they're saying. But what we all must be more concerned with is the democracy of our country and the mockery that's taking place in Parliament right now. I want to read for you a portion of the standing orders of St. Lucia. So remember, we have a constitution which creates the Parliament, and the rules of the Parliament are in what's called the standing order. Where your standing order is silent, you normally go to England or you go to the thing called Erskine notes to get best practices. So our thing says in section 38 of our standing orders, it says closure of debate. It says after a question has been proposed. So when the question that was proposed was the approval of the appropriations bill. That was the question. So do you all support the appropriations bill? And then the debate begins. It says any member may at any time during the course of the debate rise in his place and claim to move, and I quote, that the question be now put. So it means that at any time during the debate, a person can stand up and say to the speaker, I believe the question should be put, which means that the debate comes to an end and we simply go to the vote on the motion.
Right.
It goes on and says, now, unless, important part, unless it appears to the chair that the motion is an abuse of the rules of the House or an infringement of the rights of the minority of members present. Okay? So it means if a person stands up and puts the motion to stop the debate, the speaker must make the decision to determine whether in fact the rules are being infringed or if the minority is being marginalized.
Right.
Because if you put the motion to the vote, the majority eyes are going to have it.
That's right.
So the question is, are there still people who want to speak? So is the government deliberately using that as a ploy to be able to prevent the opposition from speaking? Okay? Now, there are many ways in which the speaker can exercise that responsibility. It goes on and says that the question be now put shall be put forthwith. So if he's satisfied that the rules are being followed and the minority is not being marginalized, then we can go ahead with it. So that's one issue. So that puts to rest. And also in section 37, it speaks specifically about all members having a right to speak.
To speak, yes.
Now, you played a video earlier on where Philip here was standing up and said, I have a right.
Right.
It's correct. All of us are equal in the House.
That's what I know.
All of us.
Yes.
Okay? Now, you have the leader of the opposition and you also have the leader of government business. Right? Those two persons have a bit more authority, but only when it comes to putting motions on and being the spokespersons for each of the sides.
Right.
But they certainly don't have any more power than anybody else.
Right.
The Speaker of the House is no different than having a referee at a game.
That's right.
Okay? His job is to interpret the rules and make sure there's law and order in the House. But he is not a judge. He can't cast opinions on people. So some of the things that I've seen the Speaker of the House do. So let's take, for example, this whole facade charade, when he sat there for 40 minutes berating me.
Yes.
As to he was going to withhold my salaries. Let's put that to rest.
Right.
The Speaker has no authority to do that. The Speaker of the House is not the person who put me in the House. It's the people of Miku South who put me in that. That's who I'm accountable to, not him, when it comes to that. When it comes to my salary as the leader of the opposition, it is the Governor General who appointed me. Okay? Not the Speaker of the House. So he has no authority on that. And furthermore, his role in absenteeism from the House only comes into play if I've missed 6 consecutive meetings without an excuse. And I now know that despite traveling or having any kind of legitimate excuse, he's basically not acknowledged at any time to me as to what that standard is going to be, right? So if I have not missed 6 consecutive meetings, then he has no say in the matter. The second thing that he did that was really astonishing was, again, made commentary about things I said outside the house. Okay? He doesn't rule me outside the house.
That's right. He doesn't.
He's not the referee outside the house. What I say outside the house is irrelevant to what's taking place in the house, even if I'm criticizing something inside the house. Okay? He is the master of the rules internally. Now, I don't want to take away his responsibility. I mean, like a referee in any game, if he wants to kick you out, his position is final. Ultimately, there are some things that he will ultimately be accountable to, including our Constitution and the courts. Now, the courts don't generally like to get involved in matters of Parliament, but if the breach is so egregious, I would have to imagine that they would take the case up. So there was a deliberate attempt here to prevent me from speaking. And it started from the onset. From the time the letter was written by Ernest, they knew I was going to say no because they knew what my position was. And I've not heard anybody argue the logic of what I've said. If you only have 2 members in the House, the Prime Minister himself in his own speech so said what? My minister will give you more details. How many times did he say that in the speech? My minister will give you more details. So if you're not giving me any details, how am I going to rebut your speech?
Exactly. Okay? Makes no sense.
So if there's only 2 of us and there's 14 ministers, it is fair to say that we will speak 8th to allow 7 ministers to speak, and hopefully 15th to allow another 6 ministers to speak. I don't even have to be the last person, okay? But as close to the end as possible, and the Prime Minister or the Minister of Finance always has the last say. Whoever's the presenter of the bill will always have the last say. So I could never be the last speaker. Okay? So these offers that they were making to me was all a facade to be able to come to justify what they intended to do anyway. And so the Prime Minister's rebuttal to his own presentation was more about me than it was about the country.
That's
so
right.
I want to say this to you, so. In politics, I've learned when I don't understand something, I say to myself, my enemy's enemy is my best friend. You heard that saying?
Yes, I've heard that saying. Give them closer.
Okay. So Richard Frederick, Ernest Hilaire, Philip J. Pierre, and Stephenson King all have something in common. Their hatred towards Alan Chasten. And it would appear, I think, to everybody by now, that their everyday actions are simply vindictiveness, one-upmanship, trying their best to distract me or to penalize me or whatever, to punish me, whatever that is. And I would like to say that it's a sad day for St. Lucia because all of that energy should be applied to the real enemy. The real enemy in St. Lucia is poverty.
Yes.
The real enemy is mediocrity.
Yes.
The real enemy is inflation. The real enemy are the disadvantages that we have as a small island developing state. The real enemy is the mediocrity or the low standard of living too many people are living with in St. Lucia. That's who the enemy is. That's who the energy should be applied at. Solutions to those problems. So when I used to say that the Labour Party had lost its moral authority to speak, it's because they had 15 years to do everything they didn't. So don't come at this point now and start making recommendations when you had already failed. It wasn't about you didn't have a right to say. Okay, you can go and say what you want to say. I think that they showed only one example of when we were in the House and I had stood up to close a debate and a member on the opposite side said he still wanted to speak, I sat
Yes.
back down,
Yes, I saw that.
let him
That's
speak.
Kenny Anthony. Yes. Yes.
But it happened on more than one occasion. More than one occasion. So this is why I'm saying to you, so that sadly, the behavior by the government is embarrassing. It's juvenile. It's non-productive. And it's not serving the country well. It's not serving us well in that energy that should be applied towards the real enemies in St. Lucia are not being applied. But more importantly, it really is embarrassing.
It is embarrassing, very embarrassing. Now, I know many of my viewers, including me, we would like to know, because I believe you are, how will I say it? You are bringing a new form of politics into St. Lucia, in that, it is very new to even the old politicians, because they like to play the old politics. But all of us would like to know the status with, I know you have asked for leave with the Rovergate case. Now I'm seeing they're saying, oh, why is he bringing that to the court? That is null and void. So you don't have to go into the details, because I know it's before the court, but just give us an insight as to what is happening.
So look, everybody is familiar with the Tuxedo Villa case. The Tuxedo Villa case was on a basis where they claimed that cabinet did not consider all the facts, right, in giving the concession. And so therefore, it didn't question cabinet's authority, it questioned the process that cabinet used, or the logic that cabinet used. So in the instance of the Rovergate case, there are a couple of things that really stand out. One, most people will be surprised to hear that the case against Ernest had nothing to do or making any derogatory remarks about him, okay, or alleging him of fraud or anything like that. The case was simply asking him to produce the documentation to perfect his entry. And I think a lot of persons have become confused as to why is it that customs needs to know who owns the car. And Ernest always uses the example of a person buying a TV from abroad and sending it down to you.
Oh, really?
The difference here is that when the TV arrives in St. Lucia, you're going to pay duty on it.
Yes.
So customs really doesn't care who owns the TV.
Who owns the
as long
TV?
as
No, they
duty's being
don't.
paid.
Yes.
So the reason why it's important to know who owns the car is because the car would benefit from incentives in St. Lucia. So as a returning ambassador, which he was, a returning ambassador is entitled to a duty-free car, the understanding that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs would pay for the freight, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs would pay for the VAT. So customs, in executing that incentive, must confirm that Ernest owns the car.
That's right.
Because the benefit he gets is not transferable to his wife, his daughter, or to anybody else.
That's right.
Right? The car has to belong to him. So we all know the car was on a pre-delivery. We all know that the entry was never perfected. We now all know that the reason why he cannot provide the documentation is because the car was registered in the name of the High Commission. So it became an asset of the state. So he cannot show how that state asset was transferred back to him. Okay? So it means that how does mediation resolve that issue with anything other than evidence that he owns the car? And I wrote the controller of customs. Right? I wrote the controller of customs, and it would be a simple matter to resolve. Mr. Leader of the Opposition, customs is satisfied based on such and such information that the car belongs to Mr. Hilaire. Okay? But he's not done that. The second thing is, the case was being prosecuted by the DPP. So, does the controller of customs have the right to have withdrawn the case? Because he didn't consult the DPP.
Oh.
who was prosecuting the case.
So you're saying that the DPP was left out of everything?
Correct.
But that can't be right.
And so, worse than that, and again, we've asked for clarity. We asked the control of customs, the acting control of customs. Who did you take the advice from? So if you didn't speak to the DPP, if you didn't speak to the director of finance, if you didn't speak to Chico, who did you speak to? And we're being told the person you spoke to was the Attorney General. Now, don't you know that the Attorney General was also the personal lawyer for Ernest Hilaire?
Exactly.
So he's conflicted.
He is.
Right? So the reality is that this appears to be a cover-up. Why wouldn't you have allowed the case to go through? And given the publicity of the case, if you have settled the matter legally, come out at a press conference. Just show what you've done. And let us all go home. Nobody wants to waste time on this if you've actually done that.
Exactly.
But the reality, but you see what happened is the Marcus Nicholas case now reminds us and should be a reminder to everybody how serious this is. Because Marcus has actually gone to jail.
Yes.
For doing what? For forging a document
from income tax.
and lied to Inland Revenue.
Yes.
Okay? What did Ernest do? The first car that Ernest bought was in his name. So he wrote to the British government and said, this car belongs to me. And he registered the car in his name. But he knew that the car was really owned by his brother. So he put it in his name in order to get the duty-free discount in the UK. But he could only get it if the car was in his name. When he now went and bought the second car, he could not put it in his name because he'd already used the incentive for his brother. So he put it into Tafal Williams' name. So he now lied a second time. He wrote back to the British government and said, the car belongs to Tafal Williams. But he knew the car did not belong to Tafal Williams. The car really belonged to him. Then when Tafal Williams could not get the car, and the document is there of the correspondence between Linda Hamilton, Ernest's personal assistant, that was copied to Ernest, and the British government, they said, further to your conversation today, we realize you said that you made a mistake, and the car does not belong to Tafal Williams, but the car belongs to the embassy. So in order to not confuse the matter, put in owner's name, put St. Lucia High Commission. So then the document follows up. Everything was registered in the name of the St. Lucia High Commission. Now the difference is, when Ernest put the car in his name and transferred it to his brother, he legally could do that. But it was fraud that he put it in his name and transferred it to his brother. And remember, his brother was working for a regional law enforcement agency for customs for CARICOM. Imagine that. So Paul's job was to advise customs agencies and train customs agencies how to prevent fraud from taking place. And here it is that he collaborated with his brother to defraud the British government, and using the St. Lucia High Commission's letterhead to do that. So then he lied again. Now, because the car legally belongs to the state, when the car comes into St. Lucia and he made the declaration that the car belongs to him, he lied again. Now, in each of these lies, he's actually pen paper using St. Lucia government's letterhead to perpetuate this fraud. So I don't get it, honestly, so that people are not understanding how bad this is. And then now, to make matters worse, there's a report from the audit department where Ernest, as a high commissioner, opened up a joint bank account. Ernest as high commissioner and Jufali as the ambassador. Jufali transferred £66,500 into the account. Ernest never sought permission of the state, which is required to open up the account. He never advised the state that the money was put into the account. He never sought permission from the state to transfer the money or to spend the money. And we know a lot of that money was transferred back directly into Ernest's account.
Whoa.
Look, in any other country around the world, look what Boris Johnson is going through for Partygate.
Mm-hmm.
As I said to you, Marcus has gone to jail.
He has.
But Ernest Hilaire would try to make this out to be political. In 2015, when he was doing all of this, he did it by himself. None of this was politically motivated. This is what he did. And this is why we're saying, if the government is serious about corruption, about accountability and transparency, why have they not provided an answer for us? But instead, the Prime Minister would show up in a court to say that he wants to see justice served. This whole thing is trying to be buried underneath the carpet, right? And nobody is saying anything. And so this is why we're asking for a judicial review in order that the public of St. Lucia could be satisfied that this thing was done correctly. And certainly the acting controller of customs, in my mind, has a lot of explaining to do. Now, he could have certainly saved everybody a lot of time, because the same questions I asked him in my letter are the same questions that the court's going to ask him. Why not save us all time? Why not tell us what is the story? Well, how is that so difficult? How can that not be in the public's interest to tell the people of this country how you resolve the matter?
Now, the issue I have here, a lot of people in St. Lucia, again, our people need to read. Our people need to educate themselves. Everybody, they're saying, oh, why is Alan Chastney bringing that to the court? But they do not understand what the court, when you ask for leave, they do not understand what leave is. The court is going to look at the processes to see if they were done above board. And if
well,
it was...
Thing on the leave,
go ahead.
The first thing on the leave, so would be that whether I have standing.
Right, whether you have standing.
So
yes.
Is it right? So the fact is that this is no different than the Tuxedo Villa case.
Exactly,
And
it's not.
Remember, the courts gave leave to Kenny Anthony
yes,
as
they
the leader
did.
of the opposition at that
yes.
point. So I cannot imagine. I mean, anything can happen. But I certainly can't imagine that the court will not
anything
give us
can happen, because if our prime minister can go and sit in a court with a fellow member of government, it is crazy. Now, Ernest Hilaire said that it seems you have an obsession with him. He also said on a program that he has a tape from Peter Chico stating that he apologized to Ernest Hilaire. And my interactions with Chico have never apologized to him. So what kind of message is being sent out to the people of St. Lucia? What is going on?
So again, we have to pick sense from nonsense. Even if he had a tape, it's not admissible as evidence. Because when you have mediation is done with a term that we call without prejudice. Mm-hmm. So it means it allows both parties to sit in a room mm-hmm. to know that anything that's being discussed is confidential, mm-hmm. and it's kind of like a what-if scenario, mm-hmm. right? So even if Chico did, it's not admissible as evidence. He can't bring that up, okay? So the fact is, Chico said the most important thing. I agreed to nothing. And I told him, let's go and settle this thing in court. So even if he had, which I don't think that he did.
No, he didn't.
I know that from my understanding is what they were trying to do was to put pressure on Chico. And I want hopefully your viewers to also understand this. They cannot state categorically, is Chico being taken to court as the controller of customs? Or is he being taken to court as Chico? And let's understand the difference. If he's being taken to court as the controller of customs, he's no longer the controller of customs, because it's the position that's being taken to court. Right?
Yes.
If he's being taken to court as Chico, he cannot be taken to court
as
Chico.
Personal
capacity as Chico for
cannot.
an action that he did as the controller of customs. He's protected from immunity.
Oh my God, I wish St. Lucians would think. Go ahead.
The other thing is that Ernest Hilaire doesn't want this case to move forward.
No, he doesn't.
If he proceeded with the case with Chico, it means that he would have to bring out the same evidence that we've all been asking him to put out in the first place, which he doesn't have.
Yeah, he doesn't have. He doesn't have. And Chico is concerned about his integrity. But again, I am coming back to Mr. Dazarin Green, who is the DPP. Because if Mr. Dazarin Green is the one representing the government as the prosecutor, how can the case just be withdrawn and he doesn't know anything? Isn't that not madness?
Look, I mean, my understanding is that the DPP's office was in the court, but they had not participated and did not know of any of the agreements and don't know why it was withdrawn. Simply the controller of customs has done that. You know, the DPP, I don't know why he's not said anything publicly, but the reality is I'm very assured that that's what has transpired.
But the
This
DPP representing
this is all going to come out in the court.
Yes, it will, but the DPP
Correct.
is representing the people of St. Lucia, and we need to know, because you have asked, many people have asked questions concerning that case, and nobody's saying anything. And people may be saying, oh, it's only a jeep and we are fussing, but no, we need the members of government to do what is right. We cannot have them doing what they want in office, and the little man on the road is being squeezed. So I believe this is an interesting case, and I'm hoping that, well, from what I'm seeing, the judge will grant leave, and for the people of St. Lucia to get some closure to that situation. And we cannot continue in this vein in this country. If we continue in this vein, we're gonna find ourselves in a lot of problem. Now, you said something last night which I found was so apropos. You said that you have given this government -3 C's. You said they are void of clarity, void of conviction, void of confidence. That was so apropos. Just touch on it a little for me, please.
Look, it's very, very clear that this government does not have a plan. We can all see that. Mm-hmm. It's also very clear that this government, for politics and the impressions, are simply changing names of things that they know that they can't do without. So I gave the example of COVID. They changed the command center to, I don't know, crisis center or whatever they called it. Mm-hmm. They changed the curfew to confinement. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that the effect of what they didn't work.
No.
And we're seeing it in literally a whole bunch of different areas. So in essence, they're getting the basic parts, but they don't know the details. Okay, so you take the iPads. Okay, they're talking about laptops. It's not the same thing.
No,
it's not going to generate the same result that we're talking about the ebooks, because the genesis of the ebooks is about transforming the Ministry of Education and allowing teachers to become much more productive, both in terms of their teaching skills, but also in terms of the number of students that they can. Even today, people are questioning how education is structured. Why is it that it looks like a factory? All the kids are the same age in the same group. Where in life do you work with people at your same age?
Exactly.
Shouldn't we be allowing kids to do it? Why aren't we taking advantage of the internet, which is the best library in the world? Start teaching kids how to work with an iPad and technology and accessing the internet, so that they become more productive people in the future. Because the reality is, and we all hear this, we need to teach kids how to be critical thinkers. That's how you make people internationally competitive.
We have
not
to.
by causing them to memorize anything.
Exactly.
Memorizing what?
Exactly, just cramming and putting things on a paper.
Right. So the processes are very. Let me give you a good example. Let's take the HIA airport. Mm-hmm. I am confused as to what the government is saying. Okay? So they're saying that we came in and we went away from the PPP that they had.
Yes.
I used the example yesterday. Mm-hmm. And so Philip Pierre said, and he's right, after the expansion of the airport, it is expected that arrivals will go to 1 million people a year. Right? Mm-hmm. We right now are allocating $35 for until the loan is paid off. Mm-hmm. So if you get $35 million a year, the loan will be paid off in like 10 or 12 years. And that $35 now comes back to the government because the airport would have been paid for, right? The PPP proposal was that we would give a concession for 30 years and that the concessionaire would get $60.
$60, yeah.
So 60 times a million is 60 million a year for 30 years. That's $1.8
billion, yeah.
Now, what I kept on saying was, I don't mind if they get a concession, but once the airport project is paid for, right, then the concession in my mind should stop.
That's right.
Now, listen to how farcical, imbecile, naive what the government is saying. Okay? And I'm sure I could find more adjectives to describe it, but listen to me for a second. So you're going to give a company $1.8 billion. And after they pay for the airport, which is going to be about $500 million if you give them the benefit of interest, right? On the remaining $1.3 billion, they're going to keep 70% of the money, and they're going to give you back 30% of the money. Do you know how I calculate that? So?
By the tax?
Do you know how I calculate that? Yes. They're saying that they're going to pay corporate taxes on their profit.
Yes.
So if they profit $1 billion, the tax rate is what? 30%. So the private company gets to keep 70% of money that there's no justification for. And you're saying, oh, but I'm going to get back the 30%. This is
highway
insane.
robbery.
Okay?
This is madness.
All to do what? This is all to avoid adding 2 or 3 or 4 points to your debt to GDP.
Which is better.
And you know that if you get the airport going and you get more business coming in, your GDP is going to grow. So it's going to negate that anyway, right? So this is just, insanity. Now, the government then goes on and says, well, Alan Chasney is a crazy guy because he went and changed the location of the airport terminal, which is now costing $43 million for the pilot. Okay? So let me tell Solutions what really happened. The original design, which I got to help participate in, the famous AM study, was the airport terminal was going to go in the car park in front of the airport. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I know.
So when you come into the airport, the car park, that's where the terminal was going to go. And when the terminal was completed, you were going to demolish the existing building, the current airport.
Right.
Because the reason is that the airport terminal is too close to the runway. So the bigger planes can't park right in front of it. Okay?
Yes.
So you were literally going to build a new terminal in the back. So we are now up to 430,000 passengers. Imagine the chaos that you're going to be creating and having a construction site right behind the airport. And then we said, wait a second, we're talking about building now a new cruise ship terminal. Why don't we keep the existing building, because it has value, retrofit it so your charter flights and your cruise ship passengers could be processed through that facility, and just build now a new airport terminal over there, which gives you much more room to be able to expand. And that's why we went to upstairs and downstairs on the airport terminal. They're now saying, well, that's a flood zone. Yes, there's the river going there, but the World Bank has given us $50 million to do all of the flood mitigation in the area. So that's not going to be an issue. Okay? So this is crazy. Now, the cost overruns that the government is making reference to are really not cost overruns. And I want to say to Solutions, please appreciate what I'm going to say here. My government was always mindful of corruption and efficiency. So when we obtained the loan from the Taiwanese, we gave the contract to a Taiwanese construction company that is 50% owned by the government of Taiwan.
Yeah, it's factual.
It's their money. It's their money. We wanted to make sure that they had, I said, eyes and legs on the ground. So nobody could be fooling them. So the contract that was given for the piling was a subcontract issued by OECC that was put out to tender.
Right.
And Meridian won. Now, Meridian, well established. There's 2 really good companies in the Caribbean, and there's a whole bunch of other international companies. That project has been completed. Okay. Now, the next phase of the project is the structure of the building. And then the last phase of the building is what we call FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Okay? So the bids went out for the structure of the building. OECC and the architectural firm, confirmed by the product team at SLASPA, estimated the cost to be a certain amount. When they put it out to tender, it came out like $50 million more expensive. So you have the choice. You can review and see where did your estimations go wrong, whether there's a structural change that you could make that will reduce the cost, or was this really just about inflation? And this, who knows? But there are experts that would understand. Right. But to say that there was a cost overrun, there's not a cost overrun because it was an estimate. Now, I would say to you, every day that you're letting go by and you're not starting the project back again, you're paying interest now on the first part of the project, right? And you're not going to get any revenue. We're not moving the needle. No. You have to build the airport. This is not even an option, okay? So whether you have to, instead of giving the $35 for 15 years, you can give the $35 for 20 years.
Exactly.
If you want to add another $5 and make it $40 to cover the extra cost, do it. Stop wasting time and trying to create the impression that there was anything wrong. There was none.
That is all what they're doing. That's all they do, creating impressions in people's minds.
So I'm going to drop a bombshell tonight.
Drop it.
Who is the contractor for St. Jude's? Because in all the dialogues, nobody has said. Do you know who the contractor for the St. Jude's is?
I know, but tell my audience.
OECC. The Taiwanese. Okay? Fresh Start is only a subcontractor. Right?
I explained that to my people some time ago. Exactly what you're saying. I explained that to my people some time ago. That Fresh Start.
So let's look at St. Jude's.
Oh yes. Okay. Hold St. Jude's. It is so apropos you said that. Hold St. Jude's there. Let me just play a video about St. Jude's. What happened today? I don't think you've seen that. I don't know if somebody sent it to you. Just hold. We'll play it.
Good day and welcome to GVD News. I am Vitus Peter, and today we are here at the George Odlum Stadium. We're down here in Vieux-Fort with a young lady, I must say, and very brave young lady. There's a saying, one man army. Today is one woman army, and she's taking a stand on her own right here in Vieux-Fort, in the entrance of what is our hospital right now, the stadium, which has been converted into our hospital for over, several years, I must say. And tell us, what's your name?
My name is Angela Alberti.
Okay, Miss Alberti, tell us why are you here today?
As you can see, the state of the so-called hospital. If, for instance, you come here and see your family, that thing can fly off and fall on you. So at the end of the day, if that happens, who cares? If they say they're putting people first, they should put health care first. And if you're talking about health and safety, do you call that safety? I don't see the safety in it, because that is very dangerous. and we have to take a stand. And if I die for a good cause, because I die. If they lock me up too, I lock up for a good cause, because I will stand for the people of my country. Until I will be there today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, every single day, I will protest. Because we need a better hospital. They have to fix the hospital. And I will stand alone to see that happen.
All right, what time did you got here today?
10:30.
And what time do you intend to leave?
4:30.
And when will you be back?
Tomorrow.
Okay. Do you have anything for St. Lucians watching, and you would like them to, whatever you like them to do? Can you go ahead?
I think St. Lucia are very coward people, set of people. You don't think about what people will think about you, or let's say if I say, oh, I'm afraid people might curse me or something. No, we have to stand. You don't care. We come, we rally, we stand for our country. This nonsense cannot be happening all the time. Who cares about us? Nobody cares about us. We have to do something. If anybody wants to come and join me, feel free. Because I'll be there tomorrow, I'll be there day after tomorrow, and every day.
All right, thank you so very much. So, St. Lucians, there you have it. She's asking us to put politics aside and take a stand for our healthcare here in St. Lucia. So, who's going to be the next person to take the stand? I am Vitus Peter, sending you back over to the studio.
This lady, my hat off to you, because I have always said that St. Lucians are cowards. Even me taking up the role to do what I'm doing. Everybody's like, you're not afraid. They're going to send hitmen. They're going to kill you. They're going to do you this and that. I am covered under the blood of Jesus, and I'm going to continue talking. And just like the lady said, if I have to die for my country, so be it. I'll go and meet my Heavenly Father. But I was told that some people will be joining her tomorrow to protest. St. Lucians, you need to get up. You need to get up and get. Over to you, Mr. Chasney.
Thank you. First of all, I really want to congratulate her, and I'm so sorry that it's come to this, that it may take the public's participation, to bring about a change. So really, what I have to say is not going to solve the problem, but hopefully it gives persons an insight to what we were trying to do and the logic behind what we were trying to do. I can say to you, the intention of my government was to get St. Jude's fixed as fast as possible. It is when I got the first preliminary report, that was within the first week. It was so depressing that we commissioned a full study by a company called FDL. People have tried to undermine FDL. I want to say that FDL is a solution company that has done the most amazing work in the region. In fact, CDB's #1 engineering firm throughout the region is FDL. Wow. And he has over 160 people employed. So this is a very professional firm with a lot of experience. And we commissioned him to do a study because I just could not believe, honestly, that what the reports I was hearing. When he did this study, which is, the study itself is over 217 pages and has like 3 annexes to it. In a nutshell, what he said was that there was no final plan for the hospital. That they had spent, the building that you see there, they had spent $140 million on that building. And it was estimated that it would take another $100 million to be able to complete the project. But he could not confirm that number because they could not confirm the integrity, the structural integrity of the building itself. But that also the building had many flaws in its design, maintaining international standard. And that the building where they were putting certain services, you would not put those services in those locations. So an example was, When you went on the ground floor, in order to fit in the MRI machine, they had to dig into the ground, which would have been below the ground level, which means it would have been always vulnerable to flooding. The building that was demolished, as an example, they built the building over two big trees and the trunks. So they never took out the tree trunks. So the building kept flooding because the tree trunks were still growing and cracking all of the concrete. So I said, okay, the people need to get out of the stadium. How do I downsize the ambition of that project and try to create an opportunity for people to move in? He came back with another report, and that was going to cost minimum $80 million. But he still couldn't confirm that that's what the final amount was going to be. I was very depressed, so. I asked myself, okay, if I was building a hospital from scratch, what would the hospital look like? It would be a box, meaning all the services would be contained in one building. So when you go around the world today and you look at the modern hospitals, that's what they look like. I was on my way to Turks and Caicos after a hurricane, and I asked for the flight to be diverted to go to Cayman, which we did. And I took FDL, I took the Attorney General, and I took Guy Joseph as the Minister of Economic Development with me. And we went to actually see the Cayman Health City operation there. I was blown away. I then had an opportunity to meet with the Premier and members of his cabinet to explain to me what the difference that the hospital made. So they said, because of having that hospital there that was an international standard, it made it easier for people who wanted to purchase real estate and for people who were investing in the country, because they knew that there was an international level of healthcare available to them. We also knew that we wanted to expand through the DSH project. We had already commenced the beginning to do a tripling the size of the airport. And as you know, we were in discussions with getting a cruise ship facility. So it means that if all those things came in that old facility would be grossly inadequate, right? The last thing that helped us make the decision, I said, okay, if I didn't put the hospital in that location and I built the hospital where we're building it now, what would I use that building for? And I said, you know what, this building looks like a great university. And I actually had brought the university that went into Barbados, I brought them to St. Lucia. It's just the building wasn't ready enough, and Mia did a great job in selling them on Barbados. They had a housing complex already for them, and they used the Shelbourne Center. But the reality is there's going to be other opportunities to bring another university there. So it's not to say the building is going to go to waste. The building that we built is a modern building, and it's what we call a smart building. And I want to explain to Solutions what I mean by a smart building. The panels that you see are 1.5 feet. So it's a concrete drywall, a styrofoam, a cavity or space, styrofoam, and then a concrete wall. So what happens is that the cold temperature from the air conditioning is absorbed, and then the heat is absorbed from the outside. They meet in the cavity, so that the humidity now, if there's any, is in the cavity, and the water drops down to a pan on the ground and takes the water outside, so it resolves the mold issue. Because the variation in the temperature now between the outside wall and the inside wall is less, it means that the air conditioner has to work less. Okay? Yeah. Also, what the design of the building is for is that none of the piping, the plumbing, or any of the electrical work goes into the walls like you've seen traditionally. It goes, because of the height of the ceilings, it goes in a tray that carries the water and the electrical, and depending on where you have your partition, it then goes on the inside of the wall. So it means that any modification is very easy to make happen, right? So when they say there's no water and there's no electricity, that's not true. All of the electricity stuff is connected to the building. All of the plumbing, all you have to do now is to do the interior stuff, which is on the trays in the ceiling, which is much easier both to put in and if there's any modification that you want to do. There's no tiles because what you're using is you're using an epoxy now because the epoxy is hard on the exterior but a little bit soft, so it doesn't absorb anything. It's not porous. So in terms of cleaning it is substantially less.
Exactly.
So the fact is now, the ground floor, which is about 110,000 square feet, is sufficient for the entire operation of the stadium and more to move in. And you would now have upstairs that as you expand and you need more services, you can expand. This idea where they say, oh, but you're going to have construction going upstairs. The construction is done. All you would be doing upstairs is drywall partitions and then putting in your electricity and your plumbing, which is in the ceilings. And it's going to cause no dust. It doesn't affect the operation downstairs one iota. Now, the building that you're showing there, that 220,000 square feet, which is 20% bigger than OKEU, that entire building, as you see there with the panels and all the site preparation that has been done, was $100 million.
Whoa.
Okay? That's $100 million in comparison to $140 million that was already spent on the other building, which is only 50% finished.
Wow.
It would only take $40 million to operationalize downstairs. Now, where Philip Pierre keeps coming in and says, no, it's going to cost you $70 million. It's going to cost you $70 million in cash because the building costs $100 million and $75 million has already been paid, but the contractor is due another $25 million. So you have to pay him this $25 million and then spend another $40 million. Before I left, I had put all of that financing in place.
Wow.
All right, so the documents that he said that was at the AG's office, that's true. But that was in order to all the financing to complete the building, and it would only take 3 months to complete the ground floor, 3 months to operationalize the whole set. Now, the same people who are giving us the technical advice at OKEU, the same people who built that hospital in Cayman, which are now expanding, are the ones who did the ground floor to operation, the design for the ground floor to operationalize it, and were willing to do all of the training of the St. Jude staff to help them in transitioning over to this issue. So this is just a farce.
This is I mean, you're talking, but this is heart-wrenching. I can't believe what is happening in this country. I just can't believe it.
So again, not to proceed with the project. It's not because I wanted, Alan Chasney's project. I wish I could erase that in people's minds if it could get the government to move quicker in moving into the building. But how can you look at that building, speak about being a monstrosity, and say that you have an ambition to modernize your country, that you have a vision for the South of the country? In 9 months, look what's happened to the South. I challenge anybody to contradict me.
Dead.
I mean, I don't know when persons, and look, we lost badly in the South.
Yes.
Labour Party gained support in Labrie, gained support in the 2 Vieux Fort seats. All right? And we lost Micoud North.
This on the promise of what? Nothing. On the promise of nothing. Lies and deceit on the promise of nothing. Absolutely nothing. I cannot believe. Let me tell you, I don't care whoever is saying, they are strong. I am feeling the pain for my country. How can we let this happen, people? This one lady with her placard, I salute you. How can we allow this nonsense to continue in our country? Whether you Labour, UWP, we have to put right where right have to be and wrong where wrong have to go. This is just madness. You mean to tell me we are letting this go to waste? It's going to be a year Just now in July, it's going to be a year. What is this government going to do about our health system in Vieux-Fort, in the South? This is madness.
Remember, government's revenues are back to where they were in 2019. You've collected $100 million from your CIP.
You collected $100 million from your CIP. Government revenue is back to where it was in 2019. So what is Philippe J. doing? We are suffering in terms of inflation, no relief from import taxes, from VAT, nothing, right? You're not giving us our hospital. So what is this government doing? What are they doing now? Mr. Chasney, I know it's getting late, so I will give you the final words to speak to my audience.
So the reality, so to finish up the St. Jude's issue, is not only they don't have any empathy for the people with regards to healthcare, right? They don't have a vision for the South. So all this story that they told you about, was it horses before hospitals?
Hospitals, yes.
What government didn't pay any money for any horses? So you mean to tell me that government got a person to come to St. Lucia, pay $60,000 to buy an acre of land, right? Leased him, so he bought over 150 acres of land. Leased him 200 acres of land to build a horse racing track, which he built with his money, $30 million. He paid for the horses to come. He said he was going to put on an international horse race. He did it. He's been employing people all during COVID. He wants to build a hotel. He wants to improve the South. And you're preventing him from doing that? And you've made all these false allegations against the gentleman? The cruise ship berth. Kenny Ante should have built the cruise ship port.
Yeah, that would have generated...
In 1997.
Yes, would have generated a lot of money.
1997.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Lot of activity.
And that's going to help everybody in the South.
Yes, it would.
The call centers. The call centers could have gone in long ago. Right? You criticize Ojo. You criticize ITEL BPO. For what? For improving the quality of life of the people in the South? That young people don't have to now go all the way up north? And that you're now expanding the output productivity of your country? Because you're no longer concentrating everything up north? You're now starting to spread everything around? That is what people are criticizing? That's what the government is criticizing? And when I said I was going to do it, people said it could not happen. Look, it was happening. Mm-hmm. I also want to say something that was a huge revelation. And again, I said to you when Kenny Anthony said, Dr. Anthony said, that building police stations and cars is not what's going to solve the crime. And that we have to get to the core of crime. And as I said to you, yes,
I heard him say
it's about creating a compelling reason for young people not to want to join a gang. I'm a sportsman. I believe in sports. I think that sports teaches you competition, it teaches you discipline, but you have to play sports at a certain level for it to give you those benefits.
Yes.
Now, let's look at the aquatic center in St. Lucia. It's a 25-meter pool, so it's not the biggest pool. There are 6 or 7 clubs that are there, and each club has primary school students and secondary school students. And in each of the different levels, you have beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Because you have 7 clubs there, there's always competition taking place. When you invite international clubs to come, if 2 or 3 clubs come, now you have 10 clubs participating, if you get what I mean.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's that competition that causes and pushes kids to excel. Now, we've seen the result. We had 11 kids go over, or 12 kids go over, and do incredibly well in Barbados.
Yes.
And I'm very
Tristan
so happy
Dorville
that they
did very well.
Cabinet so we could Parliament, right?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
That came out of that level of competition. So the plan that government had was to say, okay, let us initially focus on disciplines, sporting disciplines, that one, are gender neutral. Two, that can get scholarships. And three, that there are professional leagues. All right? So the number one sport in St. Lucia is soccer, football.
Right.
Men and women,
Play the sport.
lots of scholarships, Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, and probably the most professional leagues around the world. If you're going to build football, you might as well do athletics, track. Okay? Then you have basketball, you have swimming, you have tennis, you have all these other sports that also. So the goal here was to create facilities in zones, so that each zone has a track, a swimming pool, basketball courts, football facilities, etc., and that all of the clubs would be using those same facilities and sharing those facilities. It also means now that your zonal competition is much more cost effective because everybody's within closer proximity to each other. So the key now is to have a calendar of when you play cricket, when you play football, when you play, when you have athletics, when you have swimming, etc. So kids can participate in more than one group, right? And the reality now is to encourage parents to get involved in clubs.
Yes, yes.
Not just club sports, but clubs.
Clubs, yes.
Right? Because the point is that we've abandoned that role, and the athletes themselves are the ones who are trying to operate the club. They're having to raise money. They're having to organize all the stuff. So the goal here was the lottery was asked to do things it couldn't do. The lottery was there to regulate the lottery. But now the lottery had this money, and the lottery was having to now pump money into things it didn't know about. And that's where the minister's account came in and all this nonsense. Okay? So the goal was transfer the regulatory part of the lottery into the gaming authority. And now create a youth sports and culture authority. And hire professional people to do awesome. What? Okay? To help now support the development of clubs. So a club, VSADC is a classic example. VSADC is basketball, it was cricket, it was football, it was culture, okay? And so each club offers multitude of different disciplines, right? That kids can join. And it's after school. So it's in your community, it's community-based. And it's to encourage parents to do exactly what we're doing at the Aquatic Center. Now, the Groselet Academy.
Sports
How
Academy.
does that fit in? Right. So the Sports Academy was to take the kids from all the different clubs that have shown exceptional excellence, to put them in an environment in which they can continue to strengthen their skills and still get academic support. So it means the academic program is supporting their continuation in there. And that you would have now coaches in each of the disciplines, athletics, football, etc. You would have a psychologist, a sports psychologist, a sports nutritionist, a sports trainer. Now, they, in addition to training those students, are also going to be responsible for training all of the coaches in the different clubs. So all the athletic coaches will come up and do training there. All the basketball coaches come up to get training there. All of the football coaches get to come and do training there. Because I've always said, the most amazing story about Usain Bolt was not him personally, but was his coach.
His coach.
High school coach.
Yes, his coach.
Took Usain Bolt to become a world champion. Okay? So the sports, again, can only develop if we are now having people who are dedicated to coaching in the club level. In addition to sports, imagine now you could have journalism. So you're going to have the coverage through sports TV of young kids actually covering their show filming it, etc. So it becomes this becomes a massive training ground, not only for the athletes, but community-based in terms of bringing and getting parents more involved back into the community, creating community spirit because everybody's going to be supporting their different teams, right? It's going to be commercial because now you have more activities in which more vending opportunities, more interaction, right? And all of this is to say what? That a young kid now can come and join a club, and this club is going to nurture him in multiple disciplines, right? And also into culture and create a home away from home. Now, if in fact you do this, okay, so what happened in the aquatic club in terms of the standard of the competition, kids cannot go to the aquatic club and be drug addicts, be alcoholics, be indisciplined, and succeed because the competition is too good. And that's exactly what we need to see in all of our communities. So I'm saying to you that the midterm strategy that my government had was comprehensive. Wasn't just looking at where we wanted to go, but was looking at the efficiencies and thinking out of the box. And it's so sad that we, and I take the responsibility, allowed what we were doing to be marginalized and to be misrepresented to the extent that it was. But you know, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah,
The
and
reality is
it is
so-so.
true. It is true. Before you say that, I got some sad news today that the Sports Academy, this government might be closing the Sports Academy, and there is a parent who is very upset about it. So it's like anything Alan Chasney did, we are going to close it down. So maybe that's something you could look into also. Go ahead.
Yeah, look, we knew the world is insensitive to small island developing states.
They are.
What are you going to do? You're going to keep crying, or buckle up and learn to compete.
That's right.
I find that when you compete and you earn people's respect, you get more from them than begging. Right?
That's right.
I'm not a beggar.
That's right.
I'm never going to be a beggar, right? And I know that St. Lucia can do much better than we currently are doing. But maybe this pause was necessary
I think so, too.
solutions can see what the comparison is. And the reality is, and I knew that going into this.
I knew
people
that.
tend to listen to you more when you're in opposition than when you're in government.
Yeah, but it's true. But
Okay.
you know, in opposition, like right now, what you are doing, and you are actually telling the people of St. Lucia the truth, unlike the government when they were in opposition. So more people, let me inform you, Uncle Shas, you have become so popular right now. It's not funny. I don't know if you know that, but you have become very popular. A lot of people who looked at you like the devil are now shifting towards you. So keep up the good work.
No problem. So I want to end on this note because I remember I told you there was two sides of the story that I was able to tell tonight. So I was able to tell our side.
Right.
The reality is that Philip Pierre is a 6-term parliamentarian, and he's now a 4th term in government. So it means that government is not new to him. So when he said that he would have given $1,500, he knew darn well that there was no fiscal space to do it.
That's right.
When he said that he was going to give people tax-free up to $4,000, he knew that he couldn't do that. And here it is in this budget, he admitted, right? He brought it to the same level that we said we were going to bring it to, which is $28,000, right? So there are many promises that Philip has made that he knew from the onset he couldn't do it. He was simply playing on people's emotions. And I'm going to say this to you. There are people who come to me and say to me, boy, PM, why don't you just tell the people what they want to hear? I would rather not be in government if that's what it was. Because I'm not a person who wants to go out and make a promise or say something that I can't deliver on that. And if I genuinely find something different when I get in, then I'm going to come out and say that forthrightly. But I certainly would not go out of my way, given my experience, to say something I don't have any belief in. And sadly, that's what Philip has done. I mean, to stand in front of a camera and say, I did not know the impact of tourism. Really, you want us to really believe that? I mean, you were Minister of Tourism. You were in a government for 20 years.
This is scary. Him saying that and him now being a prime minister, it's scary.
Okay? You sit there and you talk about good governance and accountability and transparency. And look what is going on in your own government. If you genuinely want us to believe that that is what you believe in, it starts at home. Show us that you're willing to hold your own self and your own people accountable to that same standard, right? The level of pettiness and vindictive, I mean, it's an anger that I'm seeing. The other thing they go, well, that Alan Shastney is angry, I'm arrogant, and I'm upset that I lost.
Really?
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 I lost. And the fact is, you know, I hold United Workers' Party responsible for our loss. The things that we should have been doing that we did in 2016, we didn't do it. And we're going to address those issues because we have a responsibility as a party to our supporters to do so. But I'm not upset. This is not a destination so-so. This is a journey. This is a journey that will continue long after I die, long after my children die. I only hope to be able to make a contribution and move the needle a little bit more. Now, I ended my speech yesterday, and I heard it's been controversial in St. Lucia.
Oh yes, no. Before you continue, it is just gaslighting because I went back and I listened to it. You never incited violence, nothing of the sort. Some hots that did that. You never ever did that. That is just gaslighting, and I'm gonna just shut it down. When I do my show alone on Saturday, I'm gonna shut it down. This is just gaslighting.
So let me help you a little bit. I was making reference, and maybe that's what they thought was inciting violence, to Ukraine. And my brothers and my sisters, my friends in St. Lucia, what I was making is a comparison. That Ukrainians have reached the point where they've had to die to defend democracy. In St. Lucia, why is it we're scared to speak? Nobody's asking anybody to die. Nobody's asking anybody to be violent. Okay?
No.
We're just asking to speak.
Yes.
If something is wrong, say it's wrong. If you don't take that stance now, okay, it's going to be much more difficult. And it applies to my party, it applies to me, it applies to anybody else.
That's right.
Right? When something is wrong, say it's wrong.
It's
I mean, you take like with Joachim Henry. How are you telling me that he did what he did, and then the government turns around
and give him
makes him the minister?
What is this?
Okay, I'm asking myself, maybe I'm missing something here. I don't
This is
understand what it
madness.
is. It's almost like you're doubling down on it, and nobody says
anything, and nobody seems to care. It's like they do what they want. And I have an issue too. Where is the legal fraternity? They used to speak. Where are they? Nobody is saying anything anymore. Everybody's silent.
And I'm just saying to St. Lucians, we become better when we hold each other to a higher standard. And maybe in saying something that we learn, because we get somebody to explain something differently, maybe we misrepresented what they were saying. But differences are good.
Yes.
And the reality is so what my government was attempting to do can only be successful if everybody wants the same thing. And that's why I'm saying to you, I make no apologies for ambition. I make no apologies for wanting to be the best. And if other persons or the majority of St. Lucians don't want that, then the best thing for me is for me to leave politics, because I'll get frustrated. And then maybe at some point I will get angry. But right now, I'm singularly focused on developing St. Lucia. I don't have a timeline in my mind because it's just about making a contribution.
I totally agree. Now
I want to leave St. Lucia better.
You said something. You said the copy can never be as good as the original. And I saw so many people run away with this. Just tell me before you close, what were you thinking when you said the copy can never be as good as the original?
Because everything that I see these guys doing is just copying what we're doing. It's just changing the
Copy
name.
paste.
So like, for instance, yeah, Ernest is changing the name from Village Tourism to Community.
Community.
Why? For what? Okay, Village Tourism is the term, but I mean, I'm not going to get. I'm more interested in the detail of what he's doing. Okay, and he doesn't understand where he is going with this. He doesn't understand the whole concept. So we used Taiwanese monies. So when I came in, the Taiwanese were giving us 12 million US dollars a year in grant money, which started off as the CDP program. I didn't look at it as $12 million a year. I looked at it as 60 million US dollars for 5 years. I said, okay, let's spend some money, X number of dollars in sporting facilities. Let's spend X number of dollars in village tourism. Let's spend X number of dollars in in housing. Okay, so it wasn't all the money going into one thing. And what happened was, is because you had the 5 years, you could take the money, the total money for the 5 years, and allocate it to the project. So now you know where you're going, right? So the intent and expectation. So let's look at Soufriere, right? Soufriere, Gros Islet, Castries, and Vieux Fort all had a significant amount of infrastructure, but none of them were performing well. Mm-hmm. So we use Soufriere as a model because solutions like to see, right?
Soufriere is
fixed up all of the new development, helping with Palmise, the Hummingbird Beach project, the Old Trafford Square, the square in the town, all right? All the exterior roads going into the different communities, so that what? To generate economic activity, so that persons who are going to have small guest houses, Airbnb products in Soufriere, that the Soufriere town becomes the reception area. Mm-hmm. So let's take the mini stadium. The mini stadium before, because the way it was, could never be an international standard. Means that you could never have an international event there. Mm-hmm. Now what you've created is a world-class track, and where Diamond Park is, where we were putting the cricket pitch, is where a lot of the field events would have taken place. And that's commonplace. Because to fit both a football pitch as well as an official track in that area, everybody said we couldn't do it, and we did it. All right. So imagine now when you're hosting an international event, who benefits? All those teams staying there, and then you're talking about on TV. You have the beautiful pitons in the background, yes, right, in this beautiful community. So look what Dominic was doing with Anse-la-Raye and transforming the waterfront in Anse-la-Raye. And then the goal was again in Rodney Bay, fixing up the roads, fixing up all those nasty drains. That was the mecca of your tourism. And then the Castries redevelopment. When people said, I'm going, don't we want better? The way to solve the problem in Castries is you must get the containers out of Castries. It is occupying too valuable of a land and not generating enough of a return. Put it in cul-de-sac. That's where it's supposed to go. And beautify Castries. Now, if Rodney Bay grows, Castries grows, Soufriere grows, and Vieux Fort grows, that's now going to start spiraling into all of the other different communities, and you're spreading out your investment. And that's why the next big piece of investment that's required is the North-South Highway, to open up that entire east corridor. All the people who are coming from the south who don't want to go into the Castries don't have to go into Castries. They can go up north directly. And you start now allowing the country to breathe and taking advantage of this beautiful island in a much more meaningful way. But you have to have that ambition. And you must understand that all of these things that you're doing has to resonate down to a household. Yeah. The household has to do better. And that's why I'm saying to you, in the South, when young people or adults were having to either commute up north or live up north, you're destroying the household.
You are. You are.
That's the only way we're going to survive, right? And so it's to build within the culture that we're going to have. So imagine having an extra room in your house, which is generating revenue, okay? And that your community is beautiful. Look at the people now in Saltibus who have Airbnb products. You know how much easier it's been made for them to do that? By improving the waterfronts in our villages. So that's why I'm saying to you, I know that Ernest doesn't understand any of this. So this is why I would say to people, the copy can never be as good as the original. And that's all Labour Party is copying, and they're not even doing it well. And, you know, if you want the evidence, and I gave you all the story last night, look at the management of COVID. You changed the name.
Terrible.
And guess what? In 18 months, we had 88 deaths and 5,000 cases, right? In 7 months, these guys had 300 deaths and over 20,000 cases. And they had the benefit of the vaccines. Now, speaking of vaccines, I want to also put this to rest. It was a very difficult decision to make the decision to purchase vaccines. I knew we were going into elections. So I knew that we were going to have an event that was going to possibly cause
a spike.
A spike. We had written to the US President, Trump, said no. Boris Johnson said no. Trudeau said no. The Europeans said no, right? The only person eventually that gave us was Modi from India. And I'll never forget what he did for us in this region. We were all left to our own demise and trying to get vaccines. So when I got the phone call that 2 other countries were collaborating to purchase vaccines, and I was offered 300,000. I didn't think I could afford 300,000. We wouldn't have been able to put 300,000 into use right away.
Yeah.
So we went with 100,000. We were asked to send the money up front. Due diligence was done by the Ministry of Finance and by the Ministry of Health. Once I had gotten the okays, I approved the direct award to make the purchase. Right? I confirmed that the other 2 countries were involved. When we had the due diligence and we said we didn't know 100%, right? But the reality is the person that was going to act as the mediator. So no, he didn't produce the vaccines, but because they were purchasing 1 million, somebody had to be the front person, and that person had to show that they had the support of the government. And so it was agreed that Barbados was going to be the lead government. And we were all providing the information into Barbados. But I knew at the end of the day, if worse came to worse, which I hoped it wouldn't have happened, is that the gentleman owns a beachfront property in St. Lucia, which is worth over $9 million US.
Okay.
The gentleman also does work in St. Lucia. Okay, so he has investments in St. Lucia. So this is not an individual that could run away. This was not an unknown entity. This is somebody with a proven track record. And I understood after speaking to him what he was trying to do for us, because he just felt that the region needed help and he was willing to participate in that. Okay, I'm not saying not for profit. I always assumed that somebody was making money. Okay, the reality is when we were trying to get vaccines before, the prices that we were getting out of Dubai and other countries in the world was $50. So when we were going to get it for $27, that really seemed like a good deal.
Of course.
And after all the confirmation. Okay. So where it is at today is the gentleman himself got hoodwinked. And that came public. And he's taken the company to court. He has paid back $2 million or just under $3 million of the $7 million that he owed. Right? And he has been in contact with the government. And he's told the government that the rest of the money is caught up in the court case. And the moment that the judge releases the case, and then it gives him the permission to go ahead and disperse the monies.
Okay.
And he's given the government the assurances that he has land here. He does business in St. Lucia. He will be good on returning the money. So it's sad that the government would want to continue to perpetuate this
Play politics with this.
lie.
Yes.
Okay, it's disingenuous at best not to appreciate. I don't want to call it desperation, okay, but the crisis that we were in and what we were trying to resolve, and certainly to again their typical thing is say, oh, what we could have used the $7 million for. Right? What was more important than saving people's lives? That's what the intention was. The number of solutions with high blood pressure, diabetes, and other preconditions that makes them much more vulnerable. And we didn't have the vaccines. It wasn't like people didn't want to take the vaccine. There were a lot of people who did want to take the vaccine. We only talk about the people who didn't.
Right.
But they have a lot of people who did. Right? So I don't have any apologies for that. All of the due diligence and the backup plans have protected the people of this country. The money is not lost. Part of the money has been paid back, and I've been given the assurances the remaining amount of money will also be paid back.
You see, they like to play politics, and Philip J. Pierre, as you rightfully said, he does not have a plan for St. Lucia. So he's going to continue playing the politics by using your name, Honorable Alan Chastney. But it was such a pleasure speaking to you tonight. I know you came in from your flight, and, you know, I wish you well, whatever business venture, whatever you're doing. And we're hoping to see you back, because I believe the United Workers' Party needs to get ready. And I cannot, this is my personal opinion, I cannot see anybody else removing St. Lucia from the pit it has fallen into. So Honorable Alan Michael Chastney, affectionately known as Uncle Chas, we want to thank you for being here with us tonight. And don't be a stranger. I know you have a lot of work to do. And, you know, any of your people who want to come and talk and let the people of St. Lucia know what is happening, they are most welcome to come on my show. I am not going to bite.
No problem. And if I could just maybe use this opportunity, first of all, to wish all the mothers happy Mother's Day in St. Lucia. You guys have been really the backbone of St. Lucia and carried so much of the responsibility of our country. And I just really want to, before the weekend comes, to say thank you, and how much we appreciate all that you've done in keeping our families going. I also want to take the opportunity, if I can, to really big up my own constituency and to say thank you for your continued support. And sadly, in the last couple of months, there have been several families that have lost loved ones. The Amos family, the Toussaint family, the Cletus family, the Tipa family, the Wutu family, Alzia family, the Frederick family, the Rita family, just to name a few. And I have not been great at going to all the funerals, and I really want to convey my apologies on my behalf, but just to say I love you all. I am still very committed to the development of our constituency and the development of the South, and I can never thank you all enough for the support that you've given me, the phone calls, the well-wishing, and just very, very much appreciate that. And I love you guys very, 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 very much. And I know these are difficult times, but we will make it through all of this because we are one big family in our constituency. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Uncle Chas, and we will see you again. We'll talk again. Get some rest, because I know you just flew in. Get some rest, and I will give you a buzz tomorrow. We will chat tomorrow, my people. Thank you for watching Lies and Deceit with our leader of the opposition, Honorable Alan Michael Chastney. I will see you on Saturday at 8:30 p.m. I love y'all, and bye. Sleep well.
We expose lies and deceit. Expect us